Hello and welcome to the Ellen Made Book Club and my predictions for the Women's Prize for Fiction 2026. I love watching other people's predictions, and this year I want to play two. I want to make a reactions video when the long list is announced on March 4th, and it's a lot more fun to do that when you have, you know, some stakes in it yourself, and so that's what we're going to accomplish with this video. To be eligible for the prize, a book has to be written by a woman in English and published in the UK within the designated time frame, which is April 1st, 2025 to March 31st, 2026. I've done my best to ensure that the books that I have chosen fit those requirements. I might have made some mistakes, but I don't really know how the publishing industry works, so I've done my best and we're just going with it. The judges are looking for books that are exceptional, original, and accessible, so I've tried to keep that in mind as well. And I'm also keeping an eye out for themes that are specifically relevant to women, or books that are portraying things as they are relevant to women. I don't think that's a requirement for the prize, but that's just like the lens that I have had on while browsing these books. I'm hoping for a diverse list of books from different countries and cultures, and I'm also hoping for original ideas, some weird and wonderful books that offer some fresh perspective and are fun to read. And since this is the first time that I am predicting any kind of long list, I have decided to make one predictions list and one wish list, because that means I can sort of play it a bit safe with the predictions and include some books that, you know, have been nominated for other prizes, and I don't know, just books that seem like safer choices. And then on my wish list, I can have a bit more fun with it and pick books that I would personally love to see, either because I love them or I would like to read them. So the first book on my list of predictions is Endling by Maria Riva. This is set in Ukraine and covers some big topics like endangered species and the Russian invasion of Ukraine, as well as the issue of romance tours and the relationship of two daughters with their activist mother. This is the only book on my predictions list that I have actually read, and it wasn't my favorite, but I will say it is original and very timely and very well written, so I wouldn't blame the judges for putting this on the list. Next up, I have Helm by Sarah Hall, which I have seen mentioned here and there, and from what I understand, it follows a wind throughout time somewhere in the UK and sort of telling the story from that perspective. It seems to be this big sweeping novel with an original perspective and big ideas, and all of that I think fits very well into the Women's Prize vibe. It also has the look of an award-winning book to me. Love Forms by Claire Adam was nominated for the Booker Prize and seems to be pretty popular among readers as well, although I have seen some mixed reviews. It follows a mother who is searching for a daughter that she was forced to give up for adoption. I think it sounds really good. I've heard good things about it, and it seems to fit the Women's Prize in terms of theme. The Names by Florence Knapp is a book that I have seen everywhere this year, and it seems to have a pretty original concept with different fates based on the name you're given. It also deals with domestic abuse from what I understand, and so I think that can make it even more relevant for the Women's Prize. It might be more on the popular commercial side of things compared to some of the other books on this list, but I think it would fit in very well. My next pick is The Book of Records by Madeline Tin, which has also been everywhere. I think it was nominated for the Climate Fiction Prize, so it has that angle, and apart from that, it also seems to like span centuries, both past and present, and there's also a father-daughter relationship in there, and that's pretty much all I can grasp about the plot itself, but it's sort of giving profound and human condition, and it just seems very pricey to me, so that's why it's on this list. The Loneliness of Sonia and Sunny by Karen Desai is also a bit of a safe choice from the Booker list, and people seem to love it. I'm not interested in reading it, but it seems to tackle some big topics, and yeah, people seem to be loving it, so it seems like a safe choice. Audition by Katie Kitamura is another option from the Booker list, which I have seen some mixed reviews on. I think the novel sort of changes halfway through, and people seem to really love the first half and then not like the second half so much, or like not get the switch in the book. So yeah, it's not one that I'm interested to read. I do have Intimacies by the same author that I am much more curious about. That's not relevant for this predictions list, but that's just where I stand with this author. The author of my next pick has a similar sort of situation. I'm picking Cursed Daughters by Oinkan Braithwaite. She has been nominated before with My Sister the Serial Killer, which I read and really enjoyed. I'm not sure if she is more or less likely to be nominated again with this new novel, but I definitely think it's a possibility. Like I said, I really enjoyed this. I'm not really interested in reading Cursed Daughters, I don't think, but I would love to see another book by an African author nominated, and perhaps one that isn't from Nigeria, because I feel like that's one of the more common countries to be seen in like the literature world. And I have nothing against Nigeria, obviously, but it would just be fun to, you know, have some new authors and books put on our radars, to broaden our reading of African authors a bit. And I think that's one of the like purposes of prizes like this, to just highlight some new great authors and books for us to read. My next pick is A Guardian and a Thief by Megha Majumdar. It's set in a near future India where a woman is trying to leave the country with her daughter and her elderly father because of the flooding and famine that's going on. But before they leave, they realize that their immigration documents have been stolen. And so over the course of a week, we follow them as they try to figure this situation out. And we also follow the thief, who is also trying to care for his family. This touches on important topics like climate change and food scarcity and how far we're willing to go for family, and it sounds like a pretty suspenseful read as well, so I would be surprised if this wasn't on the long list. My next pick is a bit more of a wild card, and that is Mass Mothering by Sarah Bruni, which is a literary dystopia. It sounds a bit experimental. The main characters are called A and N, and the story is told through layered voices, written fragments, and recorded testimonies. And it obviously deals with motherhood, and there seems to be a place in this novel where mothers who have lost their sons sort of gather to grieve together. So that's also one of the big themes of the novel. But then there's also a murdered poet, and the main character is trying to figure that out somehow. I don't know, it sounds like a bit of a weird one, but it also sounds very interesting to me, so I think it would be very fun to see this on the long list. My next pick also sounds like a weird one. It has been described as a 1984 for the afterlife, and that is The Delusions by Jenny Fagan. This follows Edie, who is working in arrivals in the afterlife, and so she's processing the newly dead, and she has been there for a while, and now there has been some sort of incident at work. There's also some kind of a mass extinction on Earth, and so chaos ensues. I just think it sounds like a very original and fascinating story, and I can't wait to read it, and I hope it's on the list. The Shock of the Light by Laurie Inglis Hall is historical fiction starting out in the Second World War, and we're following twins Tessa and Theo. They are both eager to do their part in the war, but will meet shockingly different fates. So after 2 years, Theo comes back home and Tessa does not. Theo is a secretly gay man in a time where homosexuality is illegal. He's also physically wounded from the war and like emotionally broken because of the deaths of his fellow soldiers and the disappearance of his sister. And he is angry and desperate to try to figure out what happened to her. And then years later, he partners up with a PhD student to try to find answers. It's said to be both sweeping and intimate. Readers seem to be loving it so far, and it just gives me Women's Prize vibes. My next pick is Whidbey by T. Kira Madden. This is a complex whodunit and also a portrayal of three women who are connected by the acts of violence by one man. So we have Birdie, who was abused as a child by a man named Calvin. There's Lindsay, who is a former reality TV star who's coming out with a best-selling novel that Birdie is now reading and recognizing a lot of stuff in. And then we have Calvin's mother, who is receiving a phone call from the police saying that her son has been murdered. It's said to be searingly perceptive and astonishingly original, and I think it sounds like an interesting take on how women can be connected through the acts of violence of a man. And I think that might be interesting to the judges as well. My next pick is another wild card, and that is Discipline by Larissa Pham. This follows Christine, who is on tour with her novel, which is a revenge fantasy based on her real life relationship gone bad with an older professor. And then this professor reaches out to tell her that he has read her novel and why doesn't she come to his cabin in the woods? It says it's a delicately explosive high wire act about the fictions we construct for ourselves just to survive. This might be a long shot, but I think it might have an interesting take on power dynamics and art and sort of women's role in that. My next pick is another historical novel, and that is Almost Life by Karen Millwood Hargrave. This follows two young women who meet as students in Paris in 1978. There is an undeniable spark between them, and even though they have to go their separate ways at the time, this is the beginning of a long relationship that will affect every decision that they have yet to make. The novel spans decades of marriage, children, secrets, and agonizing changes, both political and personal, that might mean that they can be together if they are brave enough. This is also a bit of a long shot, but I think it's a story that I haven't seen a lot before. Readers seem to be loving it so far, so I'm throwing it in there. My last pick, Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey, needs no introduction. It's been absolutely everywhere. It has a climate angle, it's a literary mystery, everybody loves it, it's Australian, and I don't know, it just seems like a safe bet, so I'm putting it on my list of predictions. Moving on to my wish list. There are 2 books on here that I have read and loved, and then the rest are books that I am really excited to read and that I think fit the vibe for the Women's Prize. There will be a few overlaps with my predictions, but mostly it's just my own pretend long list. My first pick is, of course, The Book of Guilt by Catherine Chidgey. This was my favorite read of last year, and it covers some big, important themes, and it's also very readable. So of course I want to see this on the long list. It has been compared to a previous work of fiction, so I'm not sure the judges will see it as original enough. And I've also seen it featured on the Women's Prize website. I doubt that they would promote a book that is going to be on the long list just days before it's announced. So sadly, I don't think that this is going to be on the long list, but I would very much love for it to be. Another book that I saw featured on the website is Ruth by Kate Riley, and I haven't read this yet, but this might have been one of the books that I had considered if I hadn't seen it on the website, so just putting that there. My second pick is A Splintering by Dur Aziz Amna, and this is a story of motherhood, obsession, and ambition set in rural Pakistan. We follow Tara, who marries a man to escape the iron grip of her violent brother, only to realize that life as a housewife is not enough for her either. She wants more for herself. I think this sounds like a fascinating read. It touches on political violence, a natural disaster, and the class struggle of a woman who is willing to risk everything to carve out a life for herself. I have pre-ordered the paperback and I can't wait to read this. Next, I have Every Version of You by Grace Chan. This is a literary speculative dystopia set in late 21st century Australia. People spend their time in a hyper-consumerist virtual reality called Gaia, while their aging bodies lie suspended in cramped apartments. We follow Tao Yi and her partner Navin, and Tao Yi's mother is stubbornly remaining in the abandoned real world across town, where she is spending her time remembering her life in Malaysia. And there's a new technology coming out where you can permanently upload a human brain to this Gaia virtual reality. And so Tao Yi has to decide what's most important to her, a digital future or an authentic past. This has been nominated for the Climate Fiction Prize and the Stella Prize, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was also on the long list for the Women's Prize. I have it, as you can see, and I'm very excited to read it. Next on my wish list is Intemperance by Sonora Zhao. This follows a woman who has left 2 husbands and is now announcing that she will be celebrating her 55th birthday by holding a Swayamvar, an event drawn on an ancient custom from her Indian culture, where suitors line up to compete for a princess's hand in marriage. It says, the woman who has once declared she was past such petty matters as love is setting herself up for widespread societal ridicule, but her self-esteem and sexual libido are off the charts, even as her body withers from disability, fading beauty, and an appetite for cake. I had this on my want to read list, and then I forgot all about it, and then I sort of rediscovered it through the game show video that me and my boyfriend did, where I was guessing book covers based on his descriptions. Anyways, now I can't wait to read it. I think it sounds so good. I think the main character sounds bold and interesting. I think the cultural aspect is interesting, and yeah, I really want to see where the story goes. And also, I love the cover. Dominion by Addie E. Kitchens is a taut family drama set in a small Mississippi town where the sins of a reverend's son sends shockwaves through the community. And it says, told from the point of view of the women who love these 2 men, Dominion illustrates how we enable the everyday violence and casual sins of the patriarchy. And if that doesn't sound women's pricey to you, I don't know what does. The paperback with the cover design that I want doesn't come out until August, but I have pre-ordered it and I can't wait to read it, and I would be very happy to see it on the long list. The same thing goes for The Hounding by Sanabi Purvis. This is historical horror set in 18th century England, where people are convinced that 5 sisters that they call the Mansfield girls are turning into dogs. That and the cover art is all I really need to know, but it also says, as relevant today as any time before, The Hounding celebrates the wild breaks from convention we're all sometimes pulled toward, and wonders if, in a world like this one, it isn't safer to be a dog than an unusual young girl. My next pick is The Fountain by Casey Sieska, which follows a woman who is immortal. Vera hasn't been home in 188 years. She is forever 26 years old, and she is able to heal from any wound, and now she is returning to her home in the Catskills, where she is trying to figure out what made her immortal, because if she can figure that out, maybe she can reverse it, because after almost 2 centuries in this life, she is ready to be released. She's posing as a forest ranger to blend in, and she learns about this company that is buying a lot of local property in this area, no matter the cost. And then her brother, who is also immortal, shows up with a woman who is looking exactly like Vera. And so now Vera is in a race against time to figure out what has caused her condition before anyone else does. This sounds weird and fun and original, and I think it might have some things to say about the meaning of life, the importance of youth, and what it might be like to live forever. My next pick is Days of Light by Megan Hunter. I recently read The Harpy by the same author, and so now I'm very curious and excited to read The Days of Light, and I would love to see it on the Women's Prize longlist. This is historical fiction spanning 6 separate days across 6 decades, and we're following a woman called Ivy, her friends and family, and how one single enchanted evening will alter the rest of their lives. I really loved the writing in The Harpy, and so I'm very hopeful that The Days of Light is also exceptional. My next 3 picks overlap with my predictions, and those are A Guardian and a Thief by Megha Majumdar. I have had her previous novel, A Burning, on my TBR for quite a while, and I'm very curious about this one as well. Mass Mothering by Sarah Bruni, which is the literary dystopia with grieving mothers and a murdered poet. And then I also have The Delusions by Jenny Fagan, which is the 1984 of the afterlife, which I just cannot wait to read. And then my next pick is a book that I have read recently, and that is We Don't Talk About Carol by Kristen L. Berry. I'm not sure if this is published in the UK. Maybe it's a bit too commercial and genre-ish, and maybe it's not exceptional enough. I don't know. I think it's a fantastic story. It's very readable, and it is covering a bunch of interesting and relevant topics for the prize, and so I would love to see it on the list. This is about a woman who finds a photo of an aunt that she didn't know that she had, and it turns out that this aunt was one of 6 black girls who went missing in the 1960s from the same neighborhood, and her family refuses to talk about this aunt, hence the title, and the missing girls were never found, their cases were never solved, and so that's one of the topics that are discussed in the book, as well as IVF treatments and the main character's relationship to her husband, her sister, and her mother. I think there are a lot of interesting and relevant discussions in here about women's situation, both in the past and in the present, and in particular for Black women in the US. I'm not sure that it's going to be nominated, but it is nominated on my list. The next one on my wish list is Good People by Padmina Sabit. This is a book that I first saw on Rhonda Holden's channel. I think they're reading it for her book club. And since then, I have just sort of seen it pop up a little bit all over the place. And it does sound like a really good mystery thriller that is also offering a little bit more depth. And yeah, just relevant topics for something like the Women's Prize. We're following a family who came to the US as refugees from Afghanistan with nothing but the clothes on their back. And then years later, after, a lot of hard work, they are rich and successful and happy. And then tragedy strikes and the family is thrown into the court of public opinion. Did they really achieve the American dream, or is it all a facade? It says readers will be compelled to question what might have happened on the previous page, which just scratches my brain in a very good way. And I'm guessing it also has some things to say about the model immigrant family. I have reserved this from my library and I can't wait to read it. My next pick is The Ones We Loved by Tarisai Ngangura, and this is a debut novel set in Zimbabwe, and it's told in the rhythm of oral retellings practiced there. It follows 2 strangers who I think are just called he and she. They meet on a bus moving across the rural landscape from town to town, and she has committed a horrifying act for which there will certainly be retribution, and he is staggering from a devastating discovery. And then the story moves back and forth in time as we learn their stories. I think it sounds like a beautiful and very interesting story, and told in a different way from what I'm used to reading, and I'm really hoping to see this or something like it on the long list. My penultimate pick is Women of a Promiscuous Nature by Donna Eberhardt. This is historical fiction set in 1940s North Carolina, and we're following a young woman who is accused of promiscuity, and unjustly incarcerated and subjected to involuntary medical treatment at the State Industrial Farm Colony for Women. It says it's a powerful, shockingly timely novel based on the long-buried history of the American Plan, the government program designed to regulate women's bodies and sexuality throughout the first half of the 20th century. This sounds absolutely terrifying and sadly very relevant today, as well as being a suspenseful historical thriller. I have ordered this and I can't wait to read it, and I would not be surprised to see it on the Women's Prize long list, but it definitely is on my wish list. And then my final pick is Our Numbered Bones by Katja Balin. This book was put on my radar by Keri at Keri Books, and I just think it sounds really good. Just gonna read the description. When her life is unexpectedly upended, Anna escapes London and her husband for a remote cottage in the wetlands of rural England, hoping to write a book. Out in the marshes, the locals discover something shocking, risen to the surface after many years buried in the silty earth. Anna is drawn to the site, fascinated and shaken by what she finds there, and soon her curiosity gives way to obsession. This book is said to be unsettling, propulsive, and fiercely tender. Keri absolutely loved it. I think it's by a Welsh author as well, which I'm sure didn't hurt. But yeah, I think it's doing something more than the description or like the premise gives away, which I love. That's how it's supposed to be. And yeah, I think it sounds very intriguing, and it would be really fun to see it on the long list. So if not, at least it's on my wish list. Those are my predictions and my wish list of books for the Women's Prize for Fiction 2026. I will also put up a graphic of all of the books that I have considered, or like, no, that's not true. I have considered more than these, but these are the ones that were the closest to making it on my list. So when I watch the announcement, if there's a book that is on this list, I will give myself a point for that as well. It's my first time, and so I think I get special treatment for that. Hopefully I got something right, and hopefully you got some books on your radar that you hadn't heard about before or had forgotten that you were interested in, or I don't know. Hopefully you had a good time, and yeah, I'm really excited about seeing the announcement of the long list now. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one.